Hello friends, my name is Erin Josie. I will be handling this session. In this session, we will be talking about loops. So let's take a hypothetical situation. You are provided with a problem to print numbers from 1 to 100. So you can manually type print semicolon 1, 2, 3 for up to 100, but this is not an easy way to do this. It's so tiresome. So we can use loops to do this. What loop does this? It can be used to print certain statements and to stop according where we want to wish to stop, like just like this hammer. So if we are providing a loop to nail this nail, so we will be giving an initial position to the hammer and will be asking the computer to hit it. So how much do you want to hit it until the nail is fully into the ball? So in Python, there are two types of loop. There is a while loop and there is a for loop. We'll be talking about while loop first. While loop. So while loop start with this syntax. While there is a condition. This condition is a boolean. So it can be either true or false. If the condition is true, the statements intended will be repeated. And these statements will be repeated and after the statements of the intended statements are over, it goes back to the condition once again, and it will check whether the condition has changed to false or not. If the condition haven't changed to false, the statement will be repeated again, and this statement will be repeated again and again until the condition is turned false. So this is an example showing and like to print the odd numbers from 1 to 10. So here we will be starting off with a equal to 1, and we will be checking whether a is less than 10 or not. If a is less than 10, we will be printing a, and we will be incrementing a with a number 2 until a is 10. So let's check how this is working. First, a is 1. It will check whether a is less than 10. If it's a is less than 10, we will be printing a. Here it is 1, and a's value is incremented by 2. So 1 plus 2 is 3. Then it will check whether 3 is less than 10, and it is true. Then it will print 3, and a is incremented by a value 2, that is 5. And this process goes again until a's value is greater than 10. In this case it will be 11. So when it encounters 11, the while loop, the condition in the while loop turns false, and it will be coming out of the loop. For explaining while loop, let's take an example. In this example, our objective is to print all numbers from 1 to 10. So we are starting by initializing a variable, so we will be initializing the variable a with the number 1. So because the first odd number is 1 and the next odd number is 3, so to change 1 to 3, you have to add by a number 2. So next odd number after 3 is 5, so we have to add by a number 2 to get 5. Similarly up to 10. So here we are going to check whether a is less than 10, because we want to print numbers up to 10. This is a condition to be checked, and we will be printing the value a. Here this is the odd number, and we will be incrementing the value of a by an amount of 2 to get the other next odd number. So this will be and this statement will proceed until a's value is greater than 10. So when a's value is greater than 10, in this case a's value will be 11. So when a is 11, the statement won't be executed, and it will go to the next statement. Here it is the print statement. So let's check what is the output. Yeah, 1 3 5 7 9. So and displays are the odd numbers between 1 to 10. So let's say if we mess up the condition to be checked. Here I messed up in this condition statement. So here I put x is greater than 0 and I initialize x equal to 1. So 1 is always greater than 0 and I have updated x with x plus 1. But so the condition will be never satisfied. X will be never be less than 0. So it will be continuously repeating the statement, and it will never hit the print statement goodbye. So let's see what happens here. Yeah, it's printing indefinitely. It's keep on going. I should stop right here, I guess. So for that I am clicking right click and interrupt execution. Yeah, it has stopped. I'm gonna just clear this down. So next we are going to see break statement. So break statement and breaks helps when Python interpreter encounters the break statement. What it does, it will breaks out of the loop. So if the condition is satisfied and the print statement will be executed, next the break statement will be executed and it will be move out of the loop even if the condition is true. This condition I less than 8 is true. So in this example my objective is to input a number. Let's say input a number and check and to display the number next to it, like the number greater than it, which is a multiple of 8. So what the logic of this is, like we're initializing a variable I equal to 0 and we'll be inputting the number, and we will be checking I less than 8 because we want to check the next number is divisible by 8 or not, and we'll be checking n plus 1. That is, if we add 2, we'll be checking like 2 plus 0 is divisible by 8 or not. So it's not divisible by 8 and it will not print 2 plus 0 here, that is 2, and the value 5 will be updated and it will check until n plus 1 is divisible by 8. So let's see how this works. So I'm gonna put some value like 26. It should display the number 32. Yeah, it. So to say like the statements next to the break will not be executed when the the control has gone to the break. So let's say I have given a statement called print don't after the break, and I have run the cell again and I will be hitting the same number 26. Yeah, it has given me the answer 32, but it doesn't have printed the statement do not. So next, it's a little bit difficult programs. Here our objective is to find LCM of two numbers. So who want to try along, who want to try it, you can pause the video and check out later, and if the guys who want to follow along me can continue this video. So for this objective we'll be taking two variables A and B, and these are the two variables. This will be storing the values that we will be inputting for whose LCM has to be found out. So to find LCM, like LCM of two numbers will be greater than or equal to the value of the greatest number among them. So let's say LCM of 3 and 8. So LCM of 3 and 8 will be greater than or be equal to 8. So here we will be finding out the greatest number between in A and B. So this is the logic for that, and the range for LCM is its lowest value will be the greatest number and the highest value will be the multiplication of those two numbers. So we'll be checking whether we'll be iterating to the variable c, that is we'll be changing the value of c up to a into b, and we will be checking that whether c is divisible by a and c is divisible by d. LCM is the lowest common factor, so we will be checking whether the lowest common factor, that is lowest common factor should be divisible by both a and b. If it is divisible by both a and b, we will be printing the value of c and we will be getting out of the loop using a break statement. If it is not divisible by a and b, so we will be incrementing the value of c and we will be repeating the statements up to a into b. So, and we will be printing finally the LCM is C. So I'm gonna put two numbers, say 4 and 6. I think it should be 12. Yeah, LCM is 12. Here we will be discussing about for loop. For loop is somewhat kind of similar to while, but it is used to iterate over strings or lists and other types of objects. So to use the syntax of for loop is like for, and there will be an iterating variable which will be declared by us, and this and there will be a statement called in, and there will be a sequence. This sequence can be a string or a list or some other kind of object. So what does this essentially does is this iterating variable will go through every single value of this segments of this sequence, and for every single value of this sequence it will be executing the statements which has been intended. Yeah. So for explaining for loop, let's take an example. So for this is the syntax for iterating variable. Here the iterating variable is letter, and this will be iterating in the string Python. So for each execution, the letter will take a value in the string Python. So for the first cycle it will take the value p, then the next cycle it will take the value y, and the next t up to n. So and for each cycle it will be printing the value of the letter. So let's see what is its output. It will be Python. Yeah, it will be Python with all letters in different lines. So there is a function called range. So here what it does it, I will take the value ranging from 0 to 6 minus 1, that is 5. So I will take the values from 0 to 5 and it will print each of these values. So the output will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is the 6 digits. Yeah. The range function can also take two values. Here the range function takes two values, 1 and 7. So what it essentially does it starts from 1 and goes to 1 it gives the value up to 7 minus 1, that is 6. So it will be printing the values from 1 to 6. So the range function can also take a third variable which describes the gap between each iterating variable, like the difference in the value of each iterating variable. So it starts with 1 and next it will, instead of going to 2, it will go to 3 and so on. So it will be printing from 1 to 7 in a odd sequence. This range function can also be used to iterate backward. Like we can start from a higher value and can use a negative number to iterate to the smallest number. So here we will be starting with 4 and ending at 2, and the rate at which will be the value will be decreasing is -1. So the output will be 432. You can also use for loops to iterate through a list. So what it does here is the word will take the values of this list. So first it will take the value of the first element, that is a Python. For the next it will take the next element, programming. For the last it will take language, and it will be printing all this in separate lines. This is the output. We can combine two loops. It is applicable also for while loop also. Here what it does, the word will be taking the values Python programming and language for each cycle, and in a single cycle of that there is another for loop which will take letter and like the word, the word that has been taken in the cycle, and the letter will be iterating towards the word, and it will be similar. And this code is very much similar to the code for the first we have written, like this. So what it does, it does the same thing here to the three strings in the list, that is Python, programming and language. It's Python, programming, language. All letters are in different lines. So next we will be talking about a statement called continue. So what continue does it, like when the Python interpreter encounters the continue statement, it will go back to the beginning of the loop. So what it essentially does, it won't be changing if the updation of the iterating variable is after the continue statement, it won't be executing the continue statement. It can be used to go to the next value, the next iterating value, without going to the rest of the loop. So what it here is, so this is a program, it is a code. It can be used to print odd numbers. So what it essentially does, it will check whether a value is even, and if it's even, it won't be printing rest of the statement, and it will be going to the starting of the loop. So if it encounters let's say 0 is modulus 2 is 0, so it won't be executing the rest of the loop, and it will go to the beginning. So, and let's print this, execute this. It's printing 1 2 3 5 7 9. So let's see what happens if we remove the else statement. Okay, I'm gonna put it outside the if statement, and now let's hit shift enter. So it will be printing the odd number of values up to 10. So it won't be executing the print I if the I is an even number. So that's how it essentially works. Functions are a usable block of code that runs when we call them. So we use function if you want to use a similar code in two or more than places in our code. So if we can use same code for in multiple places without physically writing there, that's essentially why we use functions. So syntax of function is def, and this is a mandatory def. Function name, this is also mandatory. There are some parameters that are the values that function takes to execute its code, and these parameters can be optional, and the function can take one or more parameters. and there will be function called, the function will be doing some execution with the parameters that it got, and it will be finally returning some values or expression according to the code that has been evaluated. And this the function, it is not mandatory that a function should return some values. It can return some value, it can return one value, it can return more than one more values also. So it's a mathematics. Yeah, if people are good in math, like the people who are hearing is good in mathematics, they know what is a function in mathematics. In mathematics, we will be giving some input value such as x to a function. It will be doing some output, and we will be getting another value after the execution of that function. Now let's look few examples of functions. Here we have defined a function called welcome using the function, like using the syntax def function name, which is welcome here, opening and closing parenthesis, and here we are not given an input parameter for this function, and the function code is written using indentation. So in the next cell we are written welcome. So a function is called using its name. Here function name is welcome, and for naming a function all rules of identifiers has to be used. So let's run this cell. It haven't given us any input because we haven't called this function, and just remains in the memory of the interpreter that there is a function like this, and we have to do something like this, like what is written inside the function, and the function call has been encountered. So in the next cell I am calling the function welcome, and let's see what happens. Yeah, what it essentially did is it printed the statement inside the function welcome. Here it says hello, welcome to this tutorial. Let's see a function that takes an input parameter. Here n is an input parameter. So this is a function that checks whether the number n is odd or even. So if we run this code as a code above, as the function above, it does not give any in the output because it's just a function. To get any output we have to call that function. So here I have given a values 5, 4, 7 for n, and let's for the function odd even, and let's see what's the output. Yeah, it gives 5 is odd number, 4 is even, and 7 is also odd. That's how this function odd even works. Let's see a function that takes two more arguments, like here it takes two arguments m and n. It checks whether m is divisible by n, and let's run this code. As usual, it does not give any input, and if we give some input parameters like some arguments in the function code, it gives us input. Yeah, here it says 4 is divisible by 2 and 3 is not divisible by 6. As I said, the function can also return a value. So here I have defined a function called greater, which takes two arguments m and n. It checks for the biggest number among m and n. So and it returns the biggest number. So if you like what it does, let's see what it does. That would be better. So here I have called the function greater, and while calling this function greater, it takes two arguments, 10 and 5, and it checks whether 10 or 5 is greater. So essentially here the 10 is greater than 5. So what it does, it takes the argument 10 and 5 and returns the argument which is greater. Here 10 is greater, and its value is stored in the variable called a. And let's run this cell. Yeah, it prints the value 10. And we can also give a default value for an argument in the function parameter. So here I have given a value called 2021 in the parameter called y. So what it essentially does is if we give an input parameter y for this function, it will do to computation with the input parameter that we have given. If we fail to give an input parameter, it uses the default value for the computation. So let's see how that works. So I have here called the function here, and I failed to give an argument for it. I failed to give an argument for it, so it works with the default value. And for the next function call, I have given a parameter called 2000 and 2100. So let's see what is the output now. Yeah, here it computed with the default value, and the second function called it had computed the statement using the value we have entered, that is 2100. So let's go to the next example. We can also give return more than one for values or the expression in a function. So here I have defined a function called first, and have returned the values to return the values 1 2 3, sorry. So and these values are stored in two variables called a, b and c, and we will be printing those three values. Yeah, this is what it essentially does. Now let's talk about pip. So what is pip? Pip is essentially the package manager for Python. So what pip is essentially used for installing the packages in Python. So for a common person, it's like a play store for Python. You can install packages for Python, like apps in Android. So what is package? So package are external code that is published by other person that can be used in our code, like functions, and it will make our life easier and give much more it requires less time for things like prototyping, and we don't have to write a code for doing every single thing in the Python. It will be defined already by some person, and that makes our life easier. So what is a package? Package contains all the codes for a specific function. So sometimes it may contain for some specific functions like web development, for sometimes for developing an apps, etc. And we can use this package to do specific thing rather than to create programs from the scratch. So what we can think of is like, if you want to get a loud noise in a phone, we will use Bluetooth to connect to a external speaker for more amplitude of sound. You see, and it can be compared like you are for some additional functionalities in your code, we will be importing a package using the statement called import package, which we will be learning in the next slide, and it can be used to access this package for our functionalities. And we can import these packages by using the statement. Like here we are importing the package called numpy, which is used to deal computation related to metrics using the statement called import numpy. And we can also import a package into a file using the statement called like import numpy as np. Here what it essentially does here is we are calling numpy as np. Instead of using numpy everywhere in our code, we can use np. So if we don't have a package installed in our Python, we can use pip. Like I said, pip is used to install package like install apps in Android using Play Store. So he will be using pip install numpy. So what it does is it will be installing numpy. Let's see a few examples of what we have learned. Here we are using pip install art to install a package called art. So there is a difference in by Google Colab. It is not the directly pip install. It will be if you are using the resources of your computer, you have to just type pip install in your terminal or command prompt. And for using in Python Google Colabs, we have to use an exclamation symbol just before the statement called pip. And if we run this statement, the Google server will download the package called art and install it. It will be installed in the servers for you, and we can use package art in anywhere in our code right now. So here I have imported the statement called imported the package art, and I am printing say a word like a statement, welcome to Python workshop. So let's see, and we are using a function called tprint inside the package art, and let's see what tprint does. Tprint printed as the statement, welcome to Python workshop, in a odd looking font, odd looking way. So we can use another other package. There are some inbuilt packages in Python like math, time and all. So here we are importing the package called math using the statement import math, and we are taking the logarithm of of 1 using math.log, which is a function, logarithm which is a function inside the package math. So let's hit shift enter and see the result. Yeah, logarithm of 1 is 0. Similarly, we can also use this package math with an alias. So here I have used math with an alias m. So import math as m. So instead of using math everywhere in the program, we can use just m. So if I run this cell, we'll be getting the same answer, 0. There is also another way to do this. So here what we are going to do is we are importing all the functions in the math library, in the math package, using the statement from math import star. So what it essentially does is the Python interpreter tracks all the functions in the Python. So here we are importing all the functions in the math using the statement from math import star. What it essentially does it, in the package called math, we are importing all the functions. There are many functions in math like logarithm, like pi, and all that stuff is imported instead of just a function, and it will be stored in the memory of the Python interpreter. And instead of using math.log or m.log here, we can just call the function log and give the input parameters, and it will run smoothly without any error. Yeah, and the output is like this. But I won't advise you to use import statement like this, because the Python package may contain the functions that you may don't know. So we can't have a function with two functions with the same name. So while importing, we will be importing every single functions, and if we try to make a new functions with a similar name, and if you run it, the Python may show error, and we may not know what is the error, because we don't know, we may not know every single functions in a package. So, and it also uses much space in the Python interpreter. So I advise not to use this method. Thank you guys for following this tutorial. Have a nice day.